to the cloud. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host today, Samantha Studebaker-Carl. I'm here with my good friends, Catherine and Dan and Lori. And today we are digging into the book, we are continuing our discussion of the book, Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Myss. And we are in chapter, I should have looked at this before I started talking. Chapter 5, identifying your archetypal patterns, and we're at the section asking the questions, and this is asking the questions to your potential archetypes to dig in deeper and find out, how what your archetypes are that are most affecting you in your life. So, but before we go with that, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then Catherine will take it away and read this next section of questions. Okay.
Lori Emmons in Denver.
Dan Sissick in gloomy Las Vegas.
Good morning. It's Catherine Clement. All right. You can see it's sunny here because if I go forward, I get blasted. All right. So we are at asking the questions. You are certainly free to respond to the questions quickly and off the top of your head if you wish, but you can also decide to spend time with this process of self-examination and wrestle with your angels and archetypes. Every memory or association that occurs to you through this process of self-examination has value to it, even if you cannot appreciate its significance immediately. So use your journal. Remember that you're reclaiming your spirit in these fragments and constructing a hologram of your sacred contract. You will be happy to know that you are already more fluent in speaking archetypes than you ever imagined. Indeed, you probably have been speaking archetypes your entire life. I'm such a fool, one woman says. My mother has always run the martyr routine on me. You know how much I gave up for you, that type of thing. Another relates. It's not that I think of myself as a hero, but others do. I think of myself more as a rescuer. You've been in contact with archetypal imagery all your life and are probably pretty good at recognizing their patterns in other people. Indeed, the archetypes you most frequently see in others most likely have some role in your own life. Begin asking the questions about or to the 8, quote, primary archetypes you have chosen. After you have eliminated some of them based on your responses to the questions, move on to interview the 3, quote, secondary archetypes you chose until you have 8 that you feel comfortable with. You may be surprised to find that some of the archetypes you were least certain about end up carrying the most weight. The following questions are arranged in groups. Answer them by recording any present day or past experiences and relationships that seem connected to the archetype. Include the good memories along with the bad. Let the process of questioning and answering stir things up inside you. Welcome the energy of your psyche that comes with this process. You cannot ask penetrating questions and assume that your psyche will remain forever silent. Be as specific as possible in your answers. Give your prominent memories and note any details that come to mind. Since everyone has a child archetype, you might interview your child first to see what aspect presents itself. The divine child, the orphan or abandoned child, the eternal child, the magical child, or the dependent child. You'll want to interview your victim, prostitute, and saboteur too. Even though you won't need to determine that they are among your family of 12, you can still gain a great deal of insight into how they manifest in your life by answering these questions. And because you know that these 4 are definitely part of your intimate team, you may find it somewhat easier to begin with them. Historical questions. Why did you choose this archetype? Or why did I choose you? Were you aware of having this archetypal pattern prior to reading this material? Where have we met before? How do you see the shadow of this archetype within you? How does your shadow self-influence me? If this archetype is one that you were led to choose, even though you would prefer not to, list what does not appeal to you about it. What do I least like about you? What opportunities in your life do you associate with this archetypal pattern? Which opportunities in my life are connected to your energy? So when you're talking to your archetypes, obviously you're just doing the questions, those. Here's personal questions. List all the people who you feel have a connection to this archetypal pattern and give the ways they have assisted or are assisting you. Include ways that you have also assisted them. Question is, who are you most connected to in my life? How has this connection contributed to our spiritual development? In what way do you feel this archetype serves your contracts with people? The question is, how do you help me fulfill my contracts with people? With whom do you have power plays that you could connect with this archetype? The question is, who in my life do I associate with your power? And then how does this archetype factor into the unfinished business in your life, such as people you haven't forgiven or an aspect of your past that you can't let go of? Question is, who are you connected with from my past that I still have unfinished business with? In what way can your influence help bring closure to each of these relationships? List any myths, fairy tales, legends, folklore, or spiritual stories that you associate with this archetype that have meaning for you. Then identify any parallel features between these stories and your own life, such as feeling like Cinderella or Peter Pan. Then ask yourself or your archetype the following: energy and intuitive questions. Are you aware when you are engaging in the energy field of this archetype? The question is, how do I know when your energy is influencing my thoughts or actions? Record your immediate impressions as having an authentic connection. Have you ever been aware of dreams in which this archetype has been present? The question is, how do you present your energy to me through the dream state? In what way does having a conscious awareness of this archetype in your psyche empower you? The question is, in what way does your influence enhance my sense of personal power? Does this archetype in any way disempower you? Question is, do you have a negative influence on my self-esteem or on my behavior or attitudes? Describe what you consider to be the wisdom that this archetype carries for you. The question is, what have I learned lately that comes directly from you? Can you recall any instances in your life, preferably at least 3, in which you have received some form of intuitive guidance that you could associate with this archetype and its role in your contract? The question is, when and where in my life have you communicated with me most directly? And record your first impressions. What fears or challenges do you have that you associate with this archetype? List a minimum of 5. The question is, what do you make me afraid of? And then what strengths or positive qualities do you have that you associate with this archetype? List a minimum of 5. The question is, what positive characteristics do I have that you enhance and help me with? Have you ever imagined yourself to be any of the archetypes you have chosen, such as a warrior, king, slave, femme fatale, or princess? Apply the perceptions you've gleaned from answering the preceding questions to your memories. Then, one at a time, work with your memory of the people or the event in these scenes within the context of a contract that you have made for the purpose of spiritual empowerment. Here are the spiritual questions. How has and does this archetype influence your spirituality? The question is, what is your central contribution to my spiritual development? What have you come to know about yourself through this archetype, both positively and in terms of your shadow? The question is, what are your most important personal lessons that you have taught me? How would your life be different in the present by acting on the spiritual insights from this archetype? The question is, what immediate guidance can you give me in this present moment? Describe, even briefly, how this archetype factors into your contract. The question is, how do you help me work with my agreements and contract? Are there any patterns in your life that you would change because of insights regarding your connection with this archetype, such as healing a relationship, or because you can now approach those parts of your past as aspects of your contract? The question is, what is the most immediate personal change connected to your influence that I can make that would best empower me at this point in my life? Can you make those choices? If so, when? And if not, why not? Question is, how do you cause me to block personal change? What changes in your life do you fear the most? The question is, what do I fear most about your influence? And then add any further notes. You need to perform this kind of inner excavation with each archetypal pattern. You may find that you need to do it more than once, since working with one archetype inevitably wakes up a memory or two, or many, inspiring you to return to an archetype that you had already, quote, interviewed, comparing notes and connecting fragments. This process becomes more intriguing the deeper you go. As you review the above series of questions and test statements, weed out archetypes that you have selected until you arrive at 8 that you feel certain about. When you write your list of archetypes in your journal, don't just give them names. Use a brief sentence or two to describe the primary reason why you chose each one. You'll have plenty of supporting reasons and a whole history of people and events that led up to and confirmed your selection. But you should be able to state the principal reason succinctly. This will help you when you begin to work with your archetypes to interpret your contract and seek guidance on a variety of issues. Should we stop there? Yeah, that's plenty.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know that was
Yep.
a lot, but I just wanted to get through those questions.
Yes, for sure. Because I feel like, that's a big section here. And even though it was a lot of questions, it just kind of goes to show, okay, here's how we're going to dig into each of these archetypal patterns and really figure out, okay, what is affecting me and how can I make changes within that pattern to just improve myself. I guess that's basically it, right? So if we kind of go back to a couple of the ones that we discussed one of the last times, we were talking about the child one, I think. Let's see, because I think that everybody kind of had a child version of the archetype that they were connected with. So if we kind of look at this in terms of, let's discuss some of these questions to the child archetype. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure.
Okay, so
That's
if we're
definitely one
asking,
we all have.
That works. Yep.
okay, so if we're asking some of these questions, we'll just kind of start with a couple of them. We don't have to go through all of this, obviously, because this will take us a while. And I think that anybody who really wants to do some deep work, this is some powerful way to do it.
That's a private thing too.
Well, there's
Yeah.
that too,
is.
obviously. Yeah. But I think that we can kind of look at some of these in general. So like for the child one, it's talking about historical questions. Why did you choose this archetype and why did why did you? So saying, why did you and why did I choose you? So I guess it depends on the perspective you're asking it. Why did you choose it and why did I choose it? Were you aware of having this archetypal pattern prior to reading this material? That's a good one. I think that in a way, maybe, if we're looking at the child aspect of ourselves, we talked about so many different things relating to that inner child. I would say that we probably all had some thought process of the inner child being a part of us, right?
Definitely.
And that's probably why we all recognize that one right away. So if we ask that first question, why did we choose that archetype? Because we all recognize there's that child self in us. And when we were talking the other day and we were talking about the different aspects of the child archetype, we each kind of had some that were similar, but we also had some that were different. Let me get back to the child archetype here really quick and we'll read off what those titles of those were again. It was so we have the child as an orphan, the orphan child, the child wounded, child magical or innocent, child divine, child nature, and child eternal. So those are kind of the main child archetypes. And I think we all had different different ones. Some of us were similar, but some of us were also different as well. Where did I lose my questions?
Well,
Lost
and I think that some of them, I mean, I think we can have more than one. I don't know that
Hmm.
she said that, but I certainly feel that.
Mhm.
I'm
Uh-huh.
related to it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree because I know for me personally, I feel what the first two that you mentioned,
The wounded,
Wounded child,
orphan,
orphan
wounded
child.
and orphan, those two,
orphaned.
I do definitely have the wounded child. I it's weird, even though I have never been orphaned in a sense, I've never, but I feel kind of like an orphan child because of the dynamics within my early childhood with my real mom and stepdad, how
The family.
they were there, but they weren't there. It was my grandparents who I went to, and me and my sister would run to or call or whatever whenever anything happened. So yeah, and then I have others too in there, but it's interesting how when you think about it and you take time to really think about it sometimes, how so many different aspects of who you are little
Snippets.
pieces, yeah, pieces, snippets, or all kind of glued together to make who you are.
Mhm.
And not, no, none of us are exactly the same, even though we have similarities. But I think that also goes back to the beauty and uniqueness of how God created us. That's part of how our creation comes about, you know, in being placed here on earth because of how mankind is, for my beliefs going back to Adam and Eve. But in that, it helps give me a little more clarity to the beauty and the uniqueness that we all have, and to learn to understand that we all have these, and I don't like using broken, but I'll use fragmented parts of ourselves that we glued together to make us, make who we are.
Mhm.
Like a kaleidoscope or something.
Mhm. Right?
Definitely.
I was reminded there for a moment, Dan, when you were talking about feeling like the orphan, even though that you weren't. And I've never really felt like an orphan, but I remember having a couple of older adults in my life when I was in my 20s that I connected with and felt almost like the person was a mother figure for me, even though I have a mother, right? Except for that this particular woman I'm thinking of in particular, she influenced me significantly in a lot of different ways in some of the conversations that we had. And I was just like almost like a grandma, but I mean, she wasn't my grandma either. She was just a woman that I was acquainted with through my pet business. And um, but I feel like uh, even though I like you were saying, we're not orphans necessarily, but we may be feeling like we're missing something from our parental units as to what they could have provided for us that we felt like we needed. And in that particular time in my life, that woman filled that kind of wise woman um, persona for me. And so it makes me kind of think of that kind of like orphan archetype, in that my orphan side of my child self was feeling like they just were um, out of place compared to my my parents at that. I don't know, I don't want to say that's like I don't know, something I was missing or felt like I needed as my internal self that only this woman could provide for me. So that was kind of a thing. So if you guys have ever experienced something like that.
Well, yeah, I'm going to go out on a weird limb, and I'm going to say I think most people, like we all agree, the child is, I think, the predominant archetype that I think just about everybody has, because it's from such a young age, and where we're still trying to figure out and figure out who we are in relation to those people around us that were there from the beginning, so for lack of a better way of saying it. But yet, even inherently, for the best that our family tries to do, and they don't know it because they are probably still going through and figure out what they're going through. And then what they're probably doing is, when they're reacting to the child, they're going through their mind and going, oh my God, my parents did that to me. I don't want to do that to my kid. And then they go kind of off the spectrum in a different way, not realizing that that might be what your kid really needs, but they're going back to what they. So do you understand what I'm getting at? You know,
Yep.
what I'm trying to say? And so therefore, you know, I don't think deep down that my parents probably ever meant to be the way they were, if I'm honest. But it had a profound effect on me. But I've only been filled in a little bit by my mom here, my aunt, of what their childhood was like. And so therefore, maybe some of the aspects in their childhood are the reasons why they were the way they were with us, and my aunt with her daughters and things like that. So it's interesting to now look at that dichotomy and how that can even affect, and how that can, I think for me, bring about a little bit of that orphan child in me.
I'm anxious to meet my magical child, my I don't remember, there were like 3 of them. Your magical
Nature, innocent, and eternal, I think it was.
yeah. I'm anxious to meet them and my fairy godmother.
I'm anxious to meet my nature, because and as I'm getting, and it's maybe a weird correlation, but I have always liked being out in nature, and I like being connected with that. And to me, there's a connection for like with God and stuff that I feel and sense. But as I've gotten older, the more and more I go out, and I'm out and I see it, it's like, oh, I so want to go out there. But I can't, because I'm here doing what I have to do to live and survive. But deep down, it's like, I think that natural kid in me that wants to go out and explore and see and get away from humanity, so to speak, in a way, just to go commune and get back to that. I so want it. Oh, I so am craving that.
So let's ask it some of these questions. We're looking at the magical child. You want to look at that one a little bit, Lori? The magical child. And by the way, morning, Kenji. Glad you joined us. We can look at we've got these different sets of questions that we can ask. We can ask it personal questions, historical questions, energy and intuitive questions, or spiritual questions. So if we were looking at the magical archetype, the magical child archetype, which type of questions would you want to ask it? Energy, spiritual, personal, historic?
Probably energy.
Energy. Okay, so let's look at the energy questions. Oh, I'll get the right page. Here we go. Okay, energy and intuitive questions. Okay, so we start with, are you aware when you are engaging in the energy field of this archetype? How do I know when your energy is influencing my thoughts and actions? So, are you aware when you're engaging with the magical child?
I'm not aware that I have engaged with that magical child. In a way, I guess, excuse me, I probably am aware because it inspires me and it encourages me to look for more things that are magical.
All right. That says, have you ever been aware of in dreams which this archetype has been present, or how do you present your energy to me through the dream state? So you're talking to your archetype, the magical child archetype, and asking it, or one, thinking to yourself, have I experienced this in dreams? Or you're asking it the question, how do you present your energy to me in a dream?
That's a good question, because I don't think I have noticed anything in my dreams. Of course, I don't remember my dreams much. Maybe that's another archetype that interferes.
All right, and then it
No, don't go
says,
there.
in what way does having a conscious awareness of this archetype in your psyche empower you? Or if you're asking it, in what ways does your influence enhance my sense of personal power?
Dumbfounded.
So okay, so I'll re-ask it in kind of a different way. So by being consciously aware of this magical child, that's the one we're talking about, magical child, right? Yeah, the magical child. Um, how does that empower you? Like, if you realize it now that the magical child is part of your personality, part of your psyche, how does that make you? How does that awareness help you going forward? In when you're facing anything or wanting to do anything or
Wow. Again, this seems like something you do privately. I am not sure I can go there.
okay.
Oh, what was the
That
thing? What was the thing again? I got interrupted. I got a message from somebody, so sorry. What was
That's
that
okay.
last?
We're interviewing the magical child, and we're asking ourselves, in what way does having the conscious awareness of this archetype empower you? Or we're asking the magical child archetype, in what ways does your influence enhance my sense of personal power?
I think for me, it's that because I want to connect. I'd like to connect with that more. Um, Going back to a little bit like what Lori said, one, I think it inspires me. It kind of gets me to get back to that creative side and that wanting to do more, that I can do more. But two, um, it the way it empowers me is I think it would refresh me because I would see the newness out there in nature and the majesty and the beauty of God's creation, and to know that there's more in me than just what is going on right now, and to trust and lean into that guidance from Him, and to know that if I fail, I fail, but at least I would have tried and realized that may not have been the right track and look for that new track or that new, destination, so to speak.
A new guidance. It's like God's there to bandage your skin knees and set you back upright.
I kind of had a thought that if I'm faced with a decision or challenge or desire to accomplish something new and different, or whatever I happen to be facing, even in my day, if I could draw on this magical child aspect of myself, what would that look like to me? And of course, to me, I feel like the magical child kind of goes along the lines of the innocent. I don't know, I don't remember if those two were
Yeah.
the same or they were different, but that the wonder aspect of it, the innocence and
Curiosity.
the curiosity, exactly. So if I am, say, for instance, okay, well, so here's an example. So for instance, I'm going to start doing some little snippet training videos with Facebook Reels. And I don't really have a plan in place of exactly what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it, but I could bring this magical child aspect into the creative process, like what Dan's talking about, and just see what comes up. And it reminds me of the time when I was living back in the camper, and I had a lot of time, and because we just didn't have as much going on at that time. And I remember when I would read a book or, see a passage in something or see a quote or whatever it was, is that this curious inside of me, curiousness or wonder thoughts. I remember reading the book, The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. And every single page, there was something I highlighted and I put a little note, and I would, like, that day I would go out and I'd just like create this random video, like with my stream of thoughts consciousness. And I'm like, that was completely just a trust in the universe and just let whatever it was flow through me. And it was all in just this thought of wonder of, oh, what if this means that, or what if that, and so it makes me think that when we go into any kind of situation, is if we can kind of bring that wonder and or what is the magic within this situation right here, and how can we use that feeling and just kind of let go and let God. I feel like that's kind of the epitome of the magical child, right? It's let go and let God. So, um,
That's a
interesting.
good observation.
Can't wait for those snippets.
I'm excited too. I think I may end up doing more than just crypto, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's see. We were on. Okay, having a conscious awareness. Okay, next question. Does this archetype in any way disempower you? And then asking it, do you have a negative influence on my self-esteem or on my behavior and attitude? So that's another one that's coming from the opposite side. What do you guys think? How could the magical child disempower?
I can't imagine how that would happen, but I can see how the other child archetypes can influence negatively and discouraging ways.
I'm going to say for me, I think and I'm going to use a different term with that. I don't think it actually negatively influences me, so to speak, but I'm going along the lines of what Lori says. I think the others, and for me, I think some of the others tend to smother it out because of everything that's going on in my life and everything I've been dealing with. And I'm going to be honest, over the last few years, it seems like that's just been an overwhelming dark cloud, and that magical spark a little bit seems to almost, it's not totally snuffed out, but it's just a little flicker, and I want to make that flicker stronger to get back some of that power and push back some of the make that fire stronger and push back some of that darkness and that negativity that I've been dealing with over I'll be honest, the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that's taken a real toll on me, and it's drained me. And so I don't think it's been negatively, but I think everything else is kind of smothered it.
Oh, it's my turn again. Sorry. I was contemplating. Okay, so then the next questions, let's see. Describe what you consider to be the wisdom that this archetype carries for you. And then if you ask it, the question would be, what have I learned lately that comes directly from you? So, what wisdom does this archetype provide for you? And what have I learned lately?
I can see where, I guess it depends on what company you keep. Because
Yeah.
there's certain company that could be around you that would say that, Catherine, your magical child just makes you always looking through rose-colored glasses, like pie in the sky, kind of woo-woo-y, you know. But then you're in other company where they believe in manifestation and keeping focused on where you're going or whatever you want to attain or whatever it is. So in that company, they wouldn't see somebody as pie in the sky at all. I think that we all need that magical child, because things, some of the other archetypes come in, or situations come in life where you're just really struggling, and the magical child sometimes just steps in and like turns the tables in a second. Like you can feel like everything is wrong in your life, and then the nature child can step in. I think the nature and the magical are really closely related, and they can step in and just turn things around like that, because you just have this one magical moment, whether it's seeing something that as you're looking at it and it seems to be the most incredibly beautiful thing you've ever seen, and you realize you're the only one looking at it in that moment. Like you're the only one that even sees that moment or recognizes that moment. So how magical is that? So you get these little magical moments. Maybe it's repeated numbers that you keep seeing, or a song that comes to you when you're in a state of depression or distress or confusion. And then suddenly that magical child just comes in and waves their little wand, and everything suddenly blossoms into something that you never expected, like with you, Samantha, what you were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. With you too.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that you just said that, Catherine, because that made me think, because I didn't realize it, but God has provided those moments for me through that magical, to where when there's a certain song, and there are times when I will kind of think of it, but because I'm focused on what I'm doing, I don't really get into it. But then all of a sudden, if I'm on a particular radio station, every now and then that song will come on, and I'll realize it and say, "Oh my God, I I I really needed that song." And in my head, I'm thinking, I was just thinking about this song maybe half hour, 45 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden it comes on, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you realized I really needed that song just to lift me up, Lord." And in that brief moment, you know, even though probably millions of other people are hearing that same song at the same moment, if they're listening to that same radio station, but for me, it kind of like, oh, thank you. It kind of, but going back to, a little bit of also, oddly enough, going through this book, because I had my little question marks about this book, but I too have learned to go into a lot of this with open mind, and I'm applying it to how I look at my faith and stuff, but I look at it and see that there are aspects of this I can take, and this book is helping me realize that there are components God's placed in that, and that magical child is there. I also sometimes need to help activate it by calling upon it, or saying, okay, like I said, okay, this one song, and I'll say, Lord, I really could use that song. I could use something, or use that a moment, and usually down the line, somewhere, somehow, maybe not that song, but something else too, will come about. And so this book is helping me realize that those are those moments when speaking to God, He actively listens, and not always responds the way I exactly want him to, but somehow responds in a way that is appropriate in those moments, that help me go, okay, kind of, I can shake it off of that. But I never realized that before till now. So that's helpful.
helping helping us to recognize and acknowledge these different aspects in our lives.
Mhm.
I had a thought when you were talking, Dan, and now I've lost it, which is fine because I needed to pay attention to what you were saying. And sometimes a thought will come up and I lose my focus on what you're saying. So it's better to lose my focus on what I'm thinking. Better listening skills, right? Okay, so then the next question, let's see here. Okay, so the next question says, can you recall any instances in your life, preferably at least 3, in which you have received some form of intuitive guidance that you could associate with this archetype and its role in your contract? And then the question you would ask it would be, when and where in my life have you communicated with me most directly?
I think I just kind of answered that question inadvertently also just a minute ago. But sometimes I think we forget to actively just say, okay, what can you show me? Or God, what I don't want to know the whole path. I don't want to know everything ahead, but show me another step, or show me something that will give me something that will. And sometimes I think we forget that speaking it or asking it helps, even for me, put something out there, and then trusting that eventually something will come back. God will somehow eventually bring it somehow, and then I just have to pay attention to look for it. Half the time I miss it, I think, too, because I'm so caught up in what's going on.
getting past just the survival aspect of life.
I know that my fear child, inner child, the wounded child, shows up a lot in my life. And she shows up whenever I'm faced with something I'm unsure about, particularly on the financial side of things. And I feel like a lot of times she blocks me from taking advantage of opportunities that are presented to me because of all the fear of the financial issues that we've had in the past, because we've had ups and downs in our financial situation, pretty much the whole time that I've been alive. It was a big deal back when I was a kid. I remember this one time, and this left a huge impression on me, as I answered the door to somebody knocking at the door, and it was a policeman there, and he was there to serve a warrant, a tax warrant for unpaid taxes to the state, or I don't even know who it was. It's just a police officer showing up, issuing a tax warrant to my dad. And that stuck with me. So I know that has been a big aspect in my life. And of course, going forward in my life, I was like, that is never going to happen to me, so I had this whole attitude that won't happen to me. And yet I've been through credit hell multiple times in my life. And by credit hell, my definition of credit hell is when I have too much debt and I can't pay it, whether it's credit cards or loans or whatever, and my income isn't where it needs to be in order to satisfy those loans. And so we fell behind, and that's happened to us a couple times in our lives, where we thought things were going great, we ended up with more credit, and then everything crashed and burned, and then we went into credit hell, and then we did the same thing. And so that's happened a few times, and because of that, it has made me fearful and of opportunities, that and network marketing. I've been in a lot of different network marketing things over the years, and they hype it all up and they get you all excited, and you're like, oh, it's a low entry fee, I can do it, blah blah blah. And then you end up spending money, and then you fail miserably because you don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't realize it's a business. You don't realize you have to have money to make it happen, all the different things. And yet I also know that there has been opportunities presented to me in my life where I could have taken advantage of them, and I didn't, because I was stuck in that fear. And if I can bring forward, and this is what I've been working on more and more ever since we read the book, what was the book? The Big Leap? No, was it The Big Leap? It was the one that challenges the idea of having a ceiling to your income or your potential. Because we at the time we were talking about how life and financial situations always seem to have a roller coaster, right? And but that book challenged that idea. It was like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a roller coaster. It can keep going up and up. That is a belief that we have, that finances go like this, or that our lives go like this. It doesn't have to. We can keep going up. And so when I was challenged with that, then my magical child, if you will, kind of awakened and was like, what if that is something that is accurate, right? And so I started nurturing that kind of aspect of myself, even though at the time I wasn't feeling like we had a bunch of money to play with and do this and that and the other. I mean, we still were running on a really tight budget, but just over the time between then and now, just being more open to what is coming to me in terms of opportunities, and pushing aside this fear part, more things have come available to me in this year than I could ever have imagined. And that is just completely magical to me. So I'm like, if I could give any one piece of advice when we're talking about looking at these archetypes and recognizing their influence on us, is that tapping into these ones like the magical child or the nature child that is filled with wonder and facing our lives with a thought of wonder and curiosity, like what Lori was saying, instead of falling back into the wounded child and the fear. I mean, that's where the opportunities are, regardless of what our situation is. That's where the opportunities are. And even if we don't think we can do whatever it is that we think that we're wanting to do, because we think we're limited in some way, is that just by opening ourselves up to the wonder and the possibility and the curiosity of it, we may see something that we didn't even know was possible. So that's my thought on that. Oh, sheesh, we're right at the top of the hour. I want you guys to share a final thought before we go. We got to wrap it up though, because I know we have other things we've got to jump on. So
I gotta say something real quick and then I'll jump.
Yep.
I think the biggest lesson is ask the questions. Ask and ye shall receive is the truest thing that has ever been written or said to me. And there's so many times when I forget to ask, and I'll find myself in a situation where things aren't going quite right. And I'm like, why the hell is this happening? And then I start getting answers and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be asking questions. It's really easy to forget to ask. It's not like you're necessarily begging for help or anything, but just asking the question allows for the possibility of the answer to show up in a variety of ways. So thank you guys so much. I love you.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Love you all.
Love you. I was going to throw out when you were speaking, Samantha, takes me back to when we were talking about in a book way back about limiting beliefs. So this book also kind of touches on, in a roundabout way, limiting beliefs into, going back to the archetypes and now ask, like, Catherine said, asking questions to help learn and understand and maybe not excuse me, maybe not get the answers right in that moment, but help remind ourselves to ask questions and then be open and looking for the answers to appear however they may show up, and to realize they might not show up in the way we're expecting them to show up, but to hopefully nonetheless be open to that, so then that way you can make those decisions, make better decisions to move forward. Like I said,
Ignore them because,
yeah,
or
and
ignore them because you don't like what they're saying.
oh yeah, we do that too. I do that all the time. But like I said, I think I may have just missed a opportunity based on my fear of right now financially. I am just, and I was too afraid to go ahead and do it. But now as I look back, even if I had to scramble, do whatever it took, maybe for the actual 3-month period, because after that, there would have been no more expense, but I would have had what I wanted. It might have been worth that sacrifice. And 2, I might now have to take the longer approach around to trying to achieve what I want. So, a little bit of a lesson learned. So, that's my little tidbit.
You all have an awesome week.
Yep. That's it. It's a good lesson, Dan.
Love you all.
And I will, I do want to say though, I mean, just because you missed the opportunity at that time, whatever that was, is that there may be another path to get there. And you never know. I mean, I just got involved with a community just in the last year because I wanted to learn something, right? We're talking about the crypto, and I just wanted to learn about crypto. I had no idea what that was going to turn into for me. And that is just sometimes we just have to follow our curiosity and see where it leads us, and be open to the wonder of, I have an interest in this. I don't know why, but apparently it's leading me down this path that I would have never even gone down if I didn't have that curiosity to begin with, and I never went into it with any kind of a commitment of, okay, I'm gonna, make $1 million or whatever, in trading or something like that. I just went into it with a curiosity of wanting to know what it was about. So that's my thoughts on that. So with that, guys, have an awesome, amazing week. And for those of you who are watching, if you've made it this far and you haven't liked this video yet, like it already.
Why not? Like it.
Like it already. And if you want to join our discussion, if you found value from this, by all means, share it with anybody you think would find it helpful. And if you want to participate with us, you can find us on Facebook. Just look for Mindset Mastery Collective and you'll find our Facebook group. And in there, you'll get the information that you need in order to join us. So with that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week. And we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.